Welcome back, Lorcana players. It's Poisonous. Today we're going to take a look at the 10 best dual ink cards from the upcoming Archazias Island set expansion. As always, if you like my video, or if you have opinions about the cards that I chose, leave a comment, like the video, subscribe to support the channel. The dual ink cards are kind of the highlighted feature of the new Archazias Island expansion. They can only be played in decks that use both colors. So this has allowed Ravensburger to come up with some more interesting and more powerful cards in the different archetypes. So let's dive into what I think are going to be the most useful or playable cards from the new set. At number 10, we have the Troubadour, musical narrator. So he's a 2-cost, 1/3 with resist +1 and singer 4. This is a card that fits naturally into a steel song deck. It basically has the stats of the Mickey Mouse Food Fighter and Ursula Vanessa kind of combined into one. It's a great 2-drop. Singer 4 means that it can sing songs like Along Came Zeus early in the game, and with the resist, it's a little bit stickier than Ursula. So I think that this card will see some play in Steel Song for sure. Coming in at number 9, we have Hiro Hamada, Armor Designer. So he's a 7-cost, 4/6 that shifts for 5, quests for 3, and his ability says, you can be way more. Your Floodborn characters that have a card under them gain evasive and ward. Basically, anytime that you shift a card and you have Hiro in play, your Floodborns are going to have evasive and ward. It does apply to himself, so if you shift him on to Hiro Hamada, then he will have evasive and ward. With 4/6 questing for 3, that's a pretty strong and hard to remove body for most decks. So I could see this getting some play, especially with the new universal shift Baymax. I think that enabling Floodborn synergy is something that we're gonna see in this set, and this card could see some play. They did also introduce a 3-drop Hiro Hamada in green. It says when you play a Floodborn character on this card, draw a card. So it's even better as a shift target because it draws you a card as well. So I think that this is, a fun combination. Green-blue is probably gonna see more play this set than it already has, and this card could definitely be included, as there are ways to make it cheaper because it's an inventor card. It pairs up with cards like Yokai or Gadget. At number 8, we have Thunderbolt, Wonder Dog. He's a 5-cost, 3/7 that quests for 2. He also has Bodyguard, but what's interesting about this card is that he has what's called Puppy Shift, which means that he shifts for 3 on top of any puppy card. Not a card named Thunderbolt, but any card with the puppy tribal. Overall, the puppies are probably not going to see a lot of competitive play, but I did think that this card is nicely overstated. 3/7 for 5 with questing 2 is actually pretty strong, and the fact that it can shift onto a bunch of different cards means that I think it's worth mentioning that this is actually a pretty good card, and it's definitely going to see play in puppy decks. And I like the design. I like that they're expanding a little bit on what we've traditionally had for shifts in this set. Coming in at 7, we have Kronk, Laid Back. It's this green-purple card, costs 5. It is uninkable, but it's a 4/4 body with ward that quests for 2, and Kronk's ability, I'm Loving This, says if an effect would cause you to discard one or more of your cards, you don't discard. So this is got some natural anti-discard synergy if green steel or any other discard deck starts to come back. But this card also pairs well with some other cards that have been printed in this set from the Emperor's New Groove, like the new Yzma. When you play this character, you may draw a card, then choose and discard a card. So basically, Yzma would draw a card you wouldn't have to discard. And the new Cusco, he's an evasive 2/2. It says at the start of your turn, choose one. Each player draws a card, or each player chooses and discards a card. Basically, you could select the option for each player discards a card, but you don't. Only your opponent has to discard. So it's kind of a fun synergy. I know that it seems expensive to be a 5-cost uninkable, but a 4/4 body with ward that quests for 2 is pretty sticky and will be hard for opponents to remove without trading heavily into it. So I think that it could see play in a green-purple deck if you build around the discard or as more discard effects become prevalent. One thing to note is that it only applies to discard effects, not discard-related costs. So as an example, this Megara, Captivating Cynic, says when you play this character, choose and discard a card or banish this character. You wouldn't be able to just not discard and still keep her. You have to pay a cost with her, which is discarding a card. So in fact, you likely wouldn't be able to discard and you'd be forced into banning Megara. So it doesn't get rid of discard costs, but it does get rid of discard effects for both you and your opponent's cards that are played on you. Coming in at 6, we have Anna Icebreaker. This is a 4-cost inkable 2/3 that quests for 2. She has support, and she also has an ability called Winter Ambush. When you play this character, chosen opposing character can't ready at the start of their next turn. This is a fun Blurple card. As you know, Blurple is definitely one of my favorite decks, and I have a soft spot for it. I think that this card is pretty good. When you play it, you can freeze a character so they don't ready, which can be pretty strong if there's something on your opponent's board, like a Maui Shark, that you really don't want them to be able to use for a turn. You can delay them. And the body itself is kind of small for a 4-cost, but it does quest for 2, and having support means that it allows you to buff up your other characters. And there are new cards that they've printed this set for Elsa and Anna that have some synergy with each other, so playing this might enable you to run some of those other cards if you want to build them into your strategy. But I think that this is a nice card and might see play in some Blurple decks. At number 5, we have our first Amber Emerald card. This one is Tramp, Street Smart Dog. He's a 7-cost inkable 2/6 that quests for 2. He has 2 abilities. Now it's a party. For each character you have in play, you pay 1 less to play this character. And House Pickens. When you play this character, you may draw a card for each other character you have in play, then choose and discard that many cards. So this deck kind of naturally fits with an aggro strategy, and I think that a lot of the yellow-green cards this set are tailored around like a hyper aggro type build. So this card gets cheaper the more characters you have in play, so if you're playing a lot of characters in your early game, you might be able to get this down to like 4-cost or 3-cost pretty easily by turn 3 or 4, so you can play it there. The benefit of its ability is that when you play it, for every other character you have on the board, you can draw that many cards to filter through your deck and try and find something you need. I could see it naturally pairing with cards like Clarabelle, so you can try and refill your hand, or remember who you are for the same reason. Since with aggro, you typically spend all your cards really quickly. This is a nice way to filter through your deck to try and find a refill for your hand after playing a good-sized character. So I think that this card is pretty good. It could see play in a hyper aggro strategy for sure. Coming in at number 4, we have Baymax Giant Robot. So this blue-green card costs 6. It is on inkable. Stats are 5/5 and quests for 2, but he has Universal Shift 4, which means that he can shift on top of any other character. Doesn't have to be named Baymax. His ability, Functionally Improved, says when you play this character, if you use Shift to play him, remove all damage from him. So if you have a damaged character on the board, you can shift on top of it and remove the damage at the same time. I think that this is a really fun and interesting card design, and I think that this is going to see play in pretty much every blue-green deck because it gives such a big body, and it is fun that it can shift on top of any smaller character that you have on board. So when you're playing against it, you always have to anticipate that your opponent might suddenly convert their small, not threatening character like a Tipo into a giant Baymax that now quests for 2 and it's going to be hard to remove. At number 3, we have a green steel card. This is Pete, Space Pirate. He's a 6-cost inkable 5/5 that quests for 2. It's a very popular stat line with this set. So he's a shift 4, and his ability Frightful Scheme says while this character is exerted, opposing characters can't exert to sing songs, and your pirate characters gain resist +1. So it's important to note is that this ability would apply to himself, so when he's exerted, he's a 5/5 with resist 1, which is very strong because he is a pirate. But I think that part of what makes this card, shine is that he has some great shift targets. Obviously, we have the 3-cost Pete that prevents actions, that's played in pretty much every steel deck as a 4 of, so we have a natural shift line for the big space pirate Pete. And then once he's in, opponents can only play songs by paying full cost for them. They can't can't exert their character to do it. But we also are getting a new Pete card with this set that says when you play an action that isn't a song, you can banish an item. I think that this Pete may also see some play. It is a pirate, so it would synergize well in a pirate deck, and it can banish items, which I think are going to be very popular this set with all the new blue synergy around items that we're seeing. I really like this new Pete Space Pirate card. I think that Green Steel Pirates definitely has, the possibility to take off as a fun deck, but I could also see this card fitting naturally into like Green Steel discard, giving a shift line some, bulkiness that the deck is missing. Sliding in at number 2, we have Mushu, Majestic Dragon. The long-awaited arrival of Mushu into Disney Lorcana has finally arrived, and it's a fun red steel card, 5 cost, 4/4, quest for 1. It has 2 abilities, Intimidating and Awe-Inspiring. Whenever one of your characters challenges, they gain resist +2 during the challenge, and Guardian of Lost Souls. During your turn, whenever one of your characters banishes another character in a challenge, gain 2 lore. So both these abilities are tailored around challenging. I think that people, including me, have been long awaiting a red steel challenge deck, and this card seems very powerful in enabling that strategy. Could pair well with a lot of other cards for challenging, like Calhoun, or who would then have resist 3, and when banishing would gain 4 lore instead of just 2. So you could also throw in cards like Thebes, the Big Olive, to gain more lore on the challenge and banish synergy with this card. And there's, more opportunities with a new Mulan card, Li Shang, and lots of others that can really enable the strategy for challenging. I think that red steel is gonna get more play this set than it has in the past, although I recently put out, a video showing that red steel is actually still competitive in the current meta, but I think that this is gonna, give it a spot where you might have to take it seriously when you're considering exerting your characters playing up against red steel. Coming in at number 1 is another blue-green card, so that's 3 on this countdown in case you've been keeping track. Blue-green definitely looking strong going into the new set. The number 1 spot goes to Ink Geyser. It's a 3 cost on Inkable that says each player exerts all the cards in their inkwell. Then each player with more than 3 cards in their inkwell returns cards at random from their inkwell to their hand until they have 3 cards in their inkwell. So basically it resets both players back to 3 ink, you draw whatever extra cards were in your inkwell, and you continue on the game from there. So this is the first card that's been printed in Lorcana that lets you take away your opponent's ink. It takes away yours as well, but it's a big shift in mechanics because this card basically means that you can on-ramp your opponent and prevent them from playing their more expensive cards. And if you build a strategy around redeveloping your ink faster than them, you may be able to take advantage of that, or you might just use this card to keep your opponent from having a lot of ink while you have a deck that's built around playing a lot of lower cost characters, not going much above like 4 or 5 ink, and then bringing your opponent back down. In an aggro deck, you could play this to stop your opponent from playing out big characters and also using your inkwell as a little bit of mini card draw when you get your cards back, so you can play those out as well. I feel like if this card becomes played a lot in the meta, it's going to really change how the game is played, because deck building strategies are going to have to count on the fact that they may not have enough ink to play big characters. It's going to be probably a hated card for some people, especially if it gets a lot of play, but it's an interesting card, and it's going to change the mechanics of the game for sure. So that's it. That's my top 10 countdown of the dual ink cards from this set. Let me know in the comments if there's any that you think I should have put on the list that I didn't, or tell me what you think of the cards that I did pick, what ones you're most excited for or least excited for. Let me know. As always, thanks for watching the video. Please like, comment, subscribe. It really helps the channel. Cheers.